This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Linode, high-performance cloud hosting for everyone. Visit linode.com/MacVoices and take $20 off your first server package. Hi, I'm Chuck Joyner, and this is a MacVoices briefing on the upgradability of Apple's dongles. There's been a lot of discussion, past and present, about the cost of Apple's dongles and the value that they represent, especially compared to those from some third-party vendors. And I was kind of in the middle of that debate until recently, when an experience I had made me rethink the value of purchasing Apple dongles, and I want to share that with you now. This year, as I prepared for CES, I decided to change part of my workflow. Typically, what I would do is I'd take the iPad that we use for shooting on the show floor back to my hotel room, copy the files, the video files, off to my MacBook Pro, and then copy that off to a USB external drive or two for backup. This time I thought, why not just take the files and move them straight from the iPad over to an external drive, in this case an SSD, to increase the speed of things, and that would make it a lot easier and would also free up the laptop itself for me to do other things while that process was going on. Because you really have to be absolutely certain that those files get copied over safely. Any hiccups or anything that happen, you really don't have room to recover, because you have to delete the files off of the iPad for the next day, since there is limited space on the iPad. And I'm using an iPad that's a couple generations old, but the cameras haven't changed that much, and especially since I'm shooting for basically web consumption and podcast consumption, it's been just fine. It's been a great system. So I looked up some of the articles, and again, with iOS 13, all this should be pretty simple, because now we have the Files app that supports external drives. So I looked it up, and the first thing I tried was just a standard USB to Lightning adapter, and plugged the SSD into that. And I was told, I got through obviously a dialogue that didn't work because the iPad couldn't supply enough power to the drive. All right, not a big surprise there. Since I don't have an Apple store close to me, I decided to wait until I got closer in time and got to Las Vegas, where there are several Apple stores. I'd pick up the appropriate camera adapter that would let me accomplish this and also provide a power supply. Made a trip to the Apple store at the Forum Shops at Caesars. They had the camera dongle in stock exactly as I wanted, so took it back to the hotel room and plugged everything in, plugged in the SSD, plugged in the iPad, plugged in the power, everything, and nothing. Didn't work at all. So next day I went back to the Apple store, and with the intention really of returning the dongle, but I took everything with me. I took the iPad, I took the Lightning power cable, I took the SSD, I took the USB cable, I took everything exactly as it had been in the hotel room and didn't work, so I could show them that it didn't work. And got hold of one of the Apple techs, explained what had happened, and he and a couple other Apple techs came over and they were playing with it, and they said, let's try it again. This time, and I honestly don't know what I did in the hotel room, but this time, the first thing they did was they plugged everything into the adapter first, then plugged the adapter into the iPad. Now something happened. I got a message up on the screen that said, would you like to upgrade this dongle for use with this iPad? Now, note what I said. Upgrade the dongle, not the iPad, not the software, but the dongle. Well, of course, you said yes. And so hit the button, and this is the dialogue that came up, and it stayed there for about 2 minutes. And as I was chatting with the Apple techs while we were waiting to see what was going to happen, they all agreed they'd never run into this. They'd never seen these dialogues. They had never really realized that the dongles could be upgraded. So about 2 minutes later, the dialogue went away, and in the Files app, the SSD popped up as big as you please, and I could move files back and forth with no problem. So I was able to accomplish my objective for the workflow. The one thing they did say is that when you're doing something like this, you should always try various orders of plugging things in. And again, I don't know what I did the first time around, but when they did it, they plugged in the SSD, then the power, and then plugged the dongle itself into the iPad. And that's what caused the iPad to recognize that the dongle was there, and also prompted it to do the upgrade. So the point of the story, there are a couple points to this story. The first one is that you have to pay attention to the order that you're plugging things in. The second one is that, hey, maybe some of those Apple dongles do have a little bit of extra value that we're not aware of, because they apparently can be upgraded. Not that I know how to force an upgrade or do an upgrade, but the iPad does. And so your dongle can be upgraded to work with maybe legacy hardware, or maybe older dongles will be able to be upgraded to work with new hardware as we go. So it kind of changed my opinion about the value of buying Apple dongles. Today's Mac Voices is supported by Linode. You can build it on Linode. What can you build on Linode? Pretty much anything you want from a server perspective. With fast native SSD storage, industry-leading processors, a 40 gigabit network, your server is going to be really fast. So your resulting web presence is going to be really fast. With Linode's quick install options, you can get all kinds of servers up and running with just a click or two. WordPress, Minecraft, OpenVPN, Arc, WireGuard, Drupal, and more are all at your command. So creating is easy. Even if you have dozens of Linodes installed, their easy-to-use dashboard makes managing easy. So management is easy. Linode has data centers all over the world. From Newark to London, Singapore to Toronto, Linode has you covered. So managing geography-related matters is easy. In those rare instances that a problem does arise, Linode has 24/7 live customer support. So support is easy. You can configure backups when you need them with 3 times data replication, so keeping the data on your servers safe is easy. Increasing storage and decreasing storage can be done with a click, so adjusting to your growing or shrinking needs is easy. In other words, using Linode for virtual cloud servers is easy. That's why you need to visit linode.com/MacVoices right now to find out what it can do for you. That's linode.com. linode.com/MacVoices. If you've been waiting to check out a virtual server, now is your big chance. Thanks to Linode for their support of Mac Voices. The third thing, though, occurred to me when Kirk McElhearn and I were talking in a previous Mac Voices just a week or so ago about our smart home devices going obsolete, with the Sonos speakers being the big example here. And we talked about that, and then we started thinking, gee, could my HomePod go obsolete? Could my Amazon devices, could my Google devices become obsolete as we go along? And this is not something that I think a lot of us had considered before, because you think that, okay, they're software updatable, so they'll last forever. Well, maybe the company goes away, or maybe the company just decides not to support that anymore. So it seems like both sides of the coin, and I'm not advocating anything here in particular, just asking you to think a little bit about both sides of it, that upgradability may be a very beneficial thing, or it may be a negative thing, depending on what it is, how long you've had it, how much it costs, and any other considerations that you have. But at the end of the day, recognize that at least the Apple dongles can be potentially upgraded through system software to work with legacy devices. That's a Mac Voices briefing on upgrading your dongles. I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.